She was mid-laugh when we entered, head tilted, wine glass dancing in her hand, completely unaware that her entire world had just walked through the door, holding mine. Tessa squeezed my fingers. Not hard, but just enough to say, "You sure?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. My throat had locked up the moment I saw my wife's fingers brush against his jacket sleeve across the room. So casual. So familiar. Like they'd rehearsed it. Like this was their stage and I'd been written out of the script months ago. But here I was. Center stage. Standing beside the woman she never thought I'd meet, let alone bring as my date. People started turning their heads. I heard a fork hit a plate. Someone coughed. The violinist in the corner actually stopped playing for half a second, bow frozen midair. My wife's laughter died in her throat. She blinked at me once, then again, as if trying to reset reality. Then she saw whose hand I was holding. And that's when she dropped the fork. It clattered against her plate like a gunshot. I wanted to speak. I wanted to say something smooth or scathing or cinematic. But nothing came out. Just silence. My mouth stayed closed. Hers did too. It was Tessa who finally broke the tension. She leaned closer to me and said, with a smile made of pure frost, "Do you think they practiced their lies together? Or do you think it just came naturally?" Gasps. Whispers. A red flush climbing up his neck. Her eyes, wide, glassy, guilty. And me? I stood there, watching her drown in the very crowd she once ruled, and realized I didn't need to scream, or cry, or even speak. I had already won. The silence that followed wasn't the soft kind. It was sharp. It cut through the air like glass shattering under velvet. You could feel it in the way people shifted in their heels, the way conversations at other tables started and stopped, pretending not to watch, but failing miserably. My wife, Delia, stood frozen, her mouth slightly open like she was about to laugh again, but forgot the punchline. Her lover, Griffin, stared at his drink like it was the only object in the universe that made sense. I could almost hear her thoughts. Why is he here? Why is she here? Why are they together? Tessa didn't let the silence stretch too long. She was always the braver one between us. I learned that quickly. With every step deeper into that party, she never once looked away. Now, she smiled, reached out to the stunned hostess, and said calmly, "Apologies for the interruption. We weren't on the guest list, just on the gossip list, apparently." The hostess blinked, unsure if she should laugh or call security. We walked to the open bar. That's right, we didn't leave. We stayed. Ordered drinks like we belonged there. Because in a twisted, painful, cosmic way, we did belong. We were the ghosts of their secret, now walking boldly through the living. From the corner of my eye, I could see Delia whispering something to Griffin. Her hands moved quickly. She was always animated when nervous. He glanced our way, then back down, shaking his head. He looked smaller than I remembered from the photos. I always thought the man my wife would risk everything for would at least have a better jawline. But here he was, balding under the soft gallery lights, chewing on ice like it owed him money. Tessa leaned against the bar and took a sip of her red wine. "They're panicking," she said, not even bothering to whisper. "Delia's thinking about the guest list. Griffin's probably calculating how long it'll take to get a divorce without losing the house." I stared at my glass. "You think this is too much?" She turned to me slowly, tilted her head, and said, "No, Tom. What they did to us was too much. This is just equal footing." That's when Delia approached. Her steps were slow, uncertain, like she still wasn't convinced we were real. Her eyes never left mine. "Can we talk?" she asked. Her voice was soft, pleading, the same voice she once used when asking me to forgive her for being too tired to connect lately. Tessa raised her glass. "Oh, I would love to talk," she said sweetly. "But I suspect this conversation isn't meant for two." Delia looked like she was about to cry, and for a second, I almost felt bad. Almost. But then I remembered the message she sent Griffin on our anniversary. Still thinking about last weekend. Can't believe how good that felt. "Yeah, I remembered." I nodded to Tessa. "Give me a few minutes?" She kissed me on the cheek. Not romantically, just like a soldier wishing luck to another before the next round. Then I followed Delia into the hallway, past the bathroom, past the art installation with the flickering neon sign that ironically read, "Truth hurts." It does. But now, it wasn't hurting me anymore. The hallway was colder than I expected. Or maybe I was the one freezing from the inside out. The white walls were covered in abstract art. all splashes and streaks, like someone had taken a dozen secrets and thrown them at the canvas just to see what stuck. It felt fitting. Delia walked a few steps ahead of me, her heels clicking too fast, like she wanted to get somewhere before her courage evaporated. She stopped near a bench tucked beneath a red and black painting that looked like a heart exploding. "I didn't know," she said without turning around. "I swear, Tom, I didn't think you'd find out." I finished for her. "Didn't think I'd be smart enough? Or just assumed I wouldn't care?" She turned then, and the look in her eyes was familiar. Not guilt, not love, just fear. The kind of fear people feel when the scaffolding they built out of lies starts crumbling beneath them. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this." "No," I said. "It was supposed to happen in the dark. Quietly. Rehearsed. You'd keep living both lives like you deserve them. Griffin would smile at Tessa while texting you under the table. And I'd keep cleaning the coffee maker and folding your sweaters, thinking I was some kind of partner instead of just background noise." "That's not fair." I laughed. It wasn't loud. It wasn't bitter. It was the kind of laugh that slips out when you've run out of tears and logic. "Fair left this marriage 6 months ago. Maybe longer. You'd know better than me. You were counting the weekends." Her mouth opened, then closed. She took a step forward and reached for my hand, but I stepped back. She blinked, as if she hadn't expected me to flinch. Maybe in her mind, I was still that soft, predictable version of myself. The man who bought her favorite wine when she had a bad day, who paused movies when she left the room, who thought love meant not asking questions. "You don't understand," she tried again, quieter now. "I felt invisible. You were always there, but not really. Not emotionally. You stopped seeing me." I nodded. "And Griffin saw you?" She didn't answer. She didn't need to. The silence between us was a confession in itself. For a second, I almost gave in. I almost let her off the hook with one of those weak, broken phrases like, "Maybe we can work through this," or "It's complicated." But then I thought about Tessa, the way she held herself upright in that gallery, knowing she had been betrayed, too, yet walking like she owned the floor beneath her. And I thought about the version of me that Delia thought she could lie to forever. "No," I said. "You don't get to paint this like we both failed. You chose someone else. Repeatedly. You made me the fool in a room full of people who thought I was lucky to have you." She looked like she might cry. For real this time. Her lip quivered, and she sat down on the bench like her legs had given out. I didn't sit with her. I didn't comfort her. I just looked at her, really looked at her, and felt something unexpected. Relief. Because for the first time in months, I wasn't the one begging to be seen. She was. And I was already turning away. By the time I returned to the main room, the energy had changed. I could feel it, a subtle shift in how people were talking, how they moved, how their eyes darted between me, Tessa, Delia, and Griffin. The music was still playing, but lower now, like even the playlist knew something had cracked. 2 women at the charcuterie table stopped mid-conversation as I passed. A man I'd never met gave me a tight nod, the kind you give someone who just survived something awful but didn't make a scene. That's the thing about people in these polished, professional social circles. They won't say anything to your face, but they love a quiet scandal to dissect on the drive home. Tessa was still by the bar. She had moved her glass slightly to the left, just to mess with the symmetry. Her lips curled into the faintest smirk when she saw me. "Let me guess," she said. "She asked you to keep things private, for the sake of her reputation." I sat down next to her and exhaled through my nose, then laughed once, sharp, tired. She said she felt invisible, that I stopped seeing her. Tessa rolled her eyes. "They always say that, as if cheating is some noble reaction to emotional neglect, not a selfish act of convenience." She was right. She was so right. I didn't even try to defend it. I didn't need to. The weight on my chest had shifted. It wasn't gone. Betrayal doesn't just vanish, but it was different now. More solid. Less slippery. Like I'd found something firm in the middle of all the lies. Like I could stand again. We didn't speak for a few minutes. Just watched the night spiral forward in slow motion. Griffin stood near the far wall, clearly unsure what to do. He kept checking his phone, probably texting Delia. Or maybe Tessa. I wouldn't put it past him to still be juggling both. He wasn't just a cheater, he was an addict to the chase. He probably didn't even care who answered anymore. Then something strange happened. A young woman in a green velvet dress walked up to Tessa. She looked nervous, like she'd debated this move for 20 minutes and finally decided to commit. Excuse me, she said gently. I just wanted to say you're amazing. The way you walked in here with your head up, you don't see that kind of grace very often. You don't know me, but thank you for showing people what dignity looks like. Tessa blinked, caught off guard for the first time that night. Oh wow, thank you. The woman nodded and walked away. Tessa had turned to me slowly. Did that just happen? I grinned. Yeah, looks like your calm rage has a fan base now. She sipped her wine. It's probably the dress. But I knew better. It wasn't the dress. It was the truth. Because in a room full of people hiding behind cocktails and small talk, Tessa and I were the only ones not pretending anymore. And that scared them. I could feel it building. This strange, magnetic shift where we became the story. Not the cheaters. Not the lies. But us. The ones who showed up, linked arms, and flipped the script without screaming, without slapping anyone, without making a mess. We just existed in the truth. And the truth, it turns out, speaks louder than betrayal ever could. I didn't know she was going to do it. Tessa stood up without a word, left her wine on the bar, and walked straight toward the podium near the back of the gallery where Griffin had given some stiff, forgettable welcome speech earlier. The room wasn't set up for announcements anymore. People had scattered into little groups, sipping overpriced wine and pretending not to care about what had just happened. But the moment Tessa stepped up and tapped the mic, everything stopped. I froze. So did Griffin. Delia, who had just returned from the hallway, visibly paled. Her hand clutched her phone so tightly I thought the screen might crack. Griffin whispered something to her, probably some weak attempt to control the damage, but it was too late. Tessa's voice rang out clear, smooth, and devastating. I wasn't invited tonight, but I came because I thought it was important to see things for myself. To look people in the eye. She scanned the crowd, and I could feel a wave of unease ripple through the room. My husband, Griffin, told me a lot of stories over the last few months. Most of them weren't true, and I know I'm not the only one here tonight who found out the person they trusted was living a double life. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't cry. She didn't even look angry. She looked free. I came here tonight with someone who deserved the truth more than I did. Because when someone breaks your heart, you can either keep picking up the same shattered pieces and blaming yourself, or you can hand the pieces back and say, no thank you. These don't belong to me anymore. People were staring now, not in horror, not in judgment. They looked captivated, as if someone had just spoken something they'd all felt in private, but were too afraid to admit. Griffin took a step forward. Tessa, enough. Don't do this. She smiled, and it wasn't kind. It was the kind of smile you give when you've outgrown someone. Oh, Griff, she said into the mic. You've been doing this long before me. You just finally got caught in a room where you couldn't run. He stopped, hands in his pockets. Silent. Pathetic. Then Tessa turned to me. Tom, I hadn't moved. My pulse was in my ears. Every nerve in my body felt like it was vibrating under my skin. She extended her hand, and I walked up beside her. She didn't need to say anything else. Just held my hand in front of 100 people, coworkers, friends, strangers, and for once, I wasn't invisible. I wasn't the quiet husband in the background. I was part of the story, not the punchline. We left right after. No dramatic exit. No slammed doors. We just walked past Delia and Griffin like they were the ones crashing our party. Her hand never left mine. Outside, the air hit colder than I expected, sharp against the heat still buzzing in my chest. We didn't speak for a few blocks. Just walked, letting the noise of the night fall behind us. Then Tessa said, was that too much? I shook my head slowly. No, that was exactly what it needed to be. She glanced over. And you? You okay? I wasn't. Not really. But I was better. I will be, I said. And for the first time in a long time, I believed it. I thought the night would end there. A walk, maybe a ride share, a tired goodbye under flickering street lamps. But life doesn't always close its scenes so cleanly. We got back to my place. Not hers, not ours, mine. And everything felt unfamiliar, even though I had stood in this kitchen 1,000 times before. The fridge still hummed. The calendar still had her handwriting marking dentist appointments and meaningless birthdays. But something fundamental had changed. Tessa sat at the table without asking. She looked around, absorbing the details. The chipped mug beside the sink. The photo frame turned face down on the shelf. The unopened mail. I think she was expecting something colder, something more broken. But she didn't say anything. She just ran her finger across the table's edge like she was thinking through something important. I don't want to go back, she finally said. It took me a second to realize she wasn't talking about Griffin or her house. She was talking about before. The version of herself who kept her voice quiet, who let things slide for the sake of peace, who sacrificed clarity for comfort. I don't think you can, I said softly. We didn't sleep together, if that's what you're thinking. There wasn't some impulsive rush of passion. That would have been too easy, too movie-like. No, what happened was far stranger, far more intimate. We sat. We talked. We shared timelines, compared betrayals like old war wounds, discovering how many weekends overlapped, how many lies mirrored each other word for word. It was sickening, but weirdly comforting, to know you weren't alone in being fooled. To know the same script had been performed on someone else, line by line, down to the pauses and the promises. The next morning wasn't quiet. My phone blew up before I even got out of bed. Missed calls from Delia. 2 voicemails. A string of texts that started out angry, then softened, then swung back to desperation. She wanted to talk. She deserved closure. She never meant to humiliate me. She was blindsided by my reaction, as if my silence for the past month hadn't been a warning shot. But what really got me was the last message. You've made this public. Now I have to deal with the fallout at work. That was the moment something inside me clicked. It was never about the marriage. Never about love or guilt or regret. It was always about image, control, damage management. Tessa leaned over my shoulder and read the text. Classic, she muttered. She gets caught cheating and you ruined her life. I turned the phone off. Not just the screen, the whole thing. I powered it down and tossed it in the drawer like it was a dead limb I didn't need anymore. I'm done, I said. Not loudly. Not with drama. Just with certainty. Tessa nodded. Good. Let her talk to the version of you that doesn't exist anymore. We made pancakes that morning. Burnt them twice. Laughed harder than I had in months. She left around noon. No promises. No vague hints of something new between us. Just a long hug and a shared silence that didn't feel awkward. It felt earned. But I knew something had shifted. In both of us. And while I didn't know what was coming next, I knew this for sure. We weren't victims anymore. We were witnesses. And we were finally telling the story ourselves. By the end of the week, Delia wasn't calling anymore. Her messages had stopped, too. Not because she found peace, but because I stopped giving her oxygen. I didn't respond, didn't bite, didn't feed the version of me she once relied on. The quiet one, the forgiver, the man who would swallow his own dignity to keep things calm. That man was gone. Buried under months of careful lies and half-truths she had crafted like fragile ornaments, each one more ridiculous than the last. I didn't go scorched earth. That wasn't my style. There were no dramatic posts, no cryptic quotes on social media, no mass emails to friends and family. But people talk, especially in a curated little professional bubble like hers. Word spreads fast when someone crashes a gallery party with their affair partner's spouse. And when that affair partner happens to work 2 floors up in the same building, well, silence becomes louder than gossip. Delia's boss sent me an email. I didn't expect it. It was short, polite, and carefully worded, the kind of message someone writes after hours of editing. He simply said he was sorry things unfolded the way they did, and wished me clarity moving forward. There was a line near the end that caught me, though. You deserved better, Tom. That much was clear. It hit harder than I thought it would, because for so long, I didn't believe I deserved better. I thought I was lucky just to have someone who stayed. I thought showing up, paying bills, remembering birthdays, that was enough to earn love. But it turns out, love doesn't reward effort. It responds to honesty. And when one person stops being honest, no amount of holding on can fix what's already gone. I heard from a friend, someone who used to work in Delia's office, that things had started to shift around her. Griffin hadn't been coming in. People weren't eating lunch with her like they used to. No one said anything directly, of course. They just adjusted, quietly, like a room rebalancing itself after someone knocks a painting off center. Her world didn't collapse. That would have been too clean. Instead, it shrunk, slowly, subtly, painfully. The invitations stopped coming. Meetings were moved without her. She was still there, technically, but she wasn't visible anymore. Not the way she liked to be. Meanwhile, Tessa and I kept in touch, not in a romantic way, not yet. It was something stranger than that. a kind of post-trauma honesty we couldn't get anywhere else. We didn't pretend around each other. We didn't filter our words for politeness or hide our bitterness. We just told the truth about our marriages, about our regrets, about the people we used to be. One night, she sent me a photo. It was her front door. The caption read, "He moved out. No drama. Just left his key on the counter." I didn't ask what came next. I just replied, "You deserve better too." She didn't answer, but she didn't have to. Sometimes, silence is the loudest reply of all. Spring came early that year. The mornings got lighter. The air stopped biting. Even the trees outside my apartment, bare and brittle for months, started to blush green again. I know that sounds poetic, and maybe it is, but after everything, I noticed the small things more. How sunlight moved across the living room wall. How silence could feel like a friend instead of an accusation. How peace didn't knock. It just slowly let itself in, until one day, you realized you weren't waiting to be okay anymore. You already were. Delia filed for divorce quietly, through a lawyer who sent an email that didn't include a single apology, just numbers, signatures, and a timeline. I signed the documents without hesitation. I didn't ask for more than I needed. Just my name back. My space. My peace. Griffin, from what I heard, had taken a contract overseas. Tessa didn't say much about it, just that she sold the house, started fresh in a smaller city nearby, and adopted a dog named Spoons. I laughed when she told me. Not exactly a name that inspires authority. I said, "That's the point," she replied. "We've both had enough of pretending to be people we're not." We met again, months later. Not in a dramatic airport reunion, not in some romantic storm of emotions. Just coffee, a bookstore, a lazy Sunday. She wore no makeup. I hadn't shaved, but we talked for hours, like people who had seen each other broken and didn't flinch. When she reached across the table and touched my hand, there was no spark, no lightning, just warmth, real warmth. And I knew then that the story we'd both been dragged into, the one written in secrets and shadows, was over. We weren't characters in someone else's drama anymore. We were authors again, of smaller stories, quieter ones that didn't need fireworks to feel true. I don't think I'll ever forget what Delia did. That would be unrealistic, but I no longer carry it like a wound. It's just a lesson now, one that led me here, to mornings that don't feel heavy, to nights where I sleep all the way through, to a life where I don't beg to be chosen, because I already choose myself. And sometimes, that's where healing begins. Not with revenge, not with spectacle, but with peace. The kind that doesn't announce itself, just the kind that stays.